Hi, everybody. My name is Tom Woodford, and I am the college counselor with Hilliard City Schools. I know a lot of people were very, very busy the other night and were not able to make the meeting that we had out at Bradley. So I thought that I would make a video to make sure everybody gets all of the information. I know as your child is a junior now, we're starting to think about college and the process and what needs to be done. The goal for this meeting is to answer a lot of questions for you, but it's also to create more questions as well. And so one thing that I love about my job is I get to meet with students. I get to meet with families to talk about this process. So after you watch the video, if you would like to schedule a time to meet, I would love to do that. So let's get started. So let's talk about standardized testing. ACT is one of the two tests that all colleges will use. It is offered 7 times a year. I always advise students at beginning to take these tests as well as the SAT based on where they are in math. And so if they're currently in pre-calculus or higher, then they can look at scheduling one of these test dates, because nothing on pre-calculus or calculus or stats is on the ACT or the SAT. But if they're in Algebra 2, I would look at waiting till probably the April 15th date, because on the ACT, there's 60 math questions. Between 9 and 12 of them are Algebra 2 type, and 4 of them are trig, which they get in the spring of their Algebra 2 class. The ACT's highest score is out of 36. It's made up of 4 sections: English, reading, math, and science. The SAT is also offered 7 times a year. And our students will have an opportunity to take this test this spring, and I will talk more about that as well. The SAT is out of 1,600. It's made up of critical reading and mathematics. So one of the ways that SAT is different than ACT is math is going to be half of the score, and compared to the ACT, it is 25% of the total score. Juniors have an opportunity to take the PSAT on October 12th. I believe the deadline has passed to sign up for this. All of these juniors took the 10th grade version of the PSAT last spring. And so they will, hopefully they have signed up to take the PSAT this fall. This is the test that's used for the National Merit Scholarship Program through the College Board. At the very minimum, students who take the PSAT 10 as well as take the PSAT, they're going to have a very clear picture on how well they will do on the SAT. So all juniors will take the SAT this spring. This will be done during the school day. The state of Ohio will pay for the cost. To prepare students a little bit more for that test, I will put together a 4-hour SAT prep session in the month of February. Usually that's done at the end of February. We will also create a Canvas page where they will have sample questions. They will have sample questions with the formula already done to show them how to complete those questions. We will have videos and different things like that uploaded so they can have ongoing prep for that test. It is important as we look at testing that our students and we as parents help create a testing plan. And if we look at a school like Ohio State, their early action and scholarship deadline is November 1st. And knowing that, we need to work backwards from there. So if we look at the first of November, which is a deadline that the applications have to be in, well, so do all transcripts, letters of recommendation, and all testing scores must be submitted to OSU or any school by their deadline. So the last test that is guaranteed to meet all of the early action deadlines is the September test. The October test might miss some of the deadlines, especially for those schools like South Carolina, Georgia Tech, and others that have an October 15th or October 17th deadline. So the last ACT that's guaranteed to meet all of the early deadlines is the September test for their senior year. And then the last ACT that's guaranteed to meet all of those deadlines is the August test. Okay, so it's important as we create this plan, we kind of work backwards, knowing we'll either take that August SAT or the September ACT, and maybe we're going to look at taking the September test and then maybe the April test. So we've been hearing a great deal about test optional. Test optional was actually a movement prior to COVID. There were over 1,000 schools that were already test optional prior to that, one being the University of Chicago. They have been test optional now for 5 years. A school like Wake Forest, they have been test optional for over 15 years. But a school like Ohio State, in reaction to the pandemic, they are test optional. And they have already announced they will be test optional for next school year. So our current juniors can apply to Ohio State test optional. Test optional means that if a student takes ACT or SAT and they have a score that does not reflect their academic achievements, then they can apply to the school test optional. Now, I will tell you, my advice to students today using test optional is different than it was back in 2021 because I have data. And so a school like Ohio State last year had 71,000 students apply. 55% of the students applied test optional. But of the students that got accepted, 56% of them had test scores. So that tells me that they do value test scores. To get an updated list of all the colleges that are test optional at this point, go to fairtest.org. I would also check that again in February, March, and April, because a lot of colleges are going to be making those changes this spring for next year. Now, if students talk to you about, I want to go as far away from home as possible, and they want to apply to some of the state schools in the state of California, those schools are test blind. It is written in the statute, it's written in the law there, that the state colleges of the state of California cannot use any test scores as part of the admissions process. Now, the private schools out there like Stanford, Pepperdine, and many others, they are private schools and they can make up their own rules, and they may require using a test score. So let's plan ahead. Hopefully your kids are signed up to take the PSAT next week. I will have a meeting in April, again for juniors, that's going to focus on the application process. I will show the students, I will show parents what the Common App looks like, how they can maneuver all of the sections. This is a very important year in kids creating their cumulative GPA or raising that cumulative GPA. When we send students transcripts next fall to the schools that the students are going to apply to, they're going to be looking at, these colleges are going to be looking at a student's cumulative GPA, not semester by semester or year by year GPAs. So it's important that students finish this year with a strong cumulative GPA. Cumulative GPA is only calculated in January and June. PSAT outcomes will come out during the holidays. It's important that students look at them. They will have to go on their College Board account and look at those scores. This is also an important time for them, if they haven't started, is to begin to volunteer, show service, and join clubs, join 1 or 2 clubs in school, maybe 1 or 2 clubs outside of school. All of this is a part of the holistic review. If students are interested in taking college courses as a senior, I will host a College Credit Plus meeting on November 28th at Davidson at 6:30. Now, when we get to February and we're working on schedules for next year, it's important that students create a strong senior schedule. Senior year does matter. When we send a transcript, we also send their senior schedule. Many colleges will ask for mid-year grades. They will ask for their grades in January. And by doing that, they can see how well students are doing in their senior year. They can also see, have they kept the same strong schedule that they signed up for at the beginning of the school year. Sometimes students do not get admitted because of their senior schedule or because of outcomes from that senior schedule. It's also important too that even after students get into various colleges throughout their senior year, nothing is finalized until the college they want to attend gets the final transcript in June. Colleges do have the authority to deny student in June, even though they've already admitted them based on the academic performance of the senior year. Students should be scheduling ACT and SAT. We've already talked about that. Begin to visit colleges. Spring break is a great opportunity to visit various schools. And if students are taking an AP class, they should finish the school year by taking the AP exam. Important terms: early decision. Only 18% of the colleges out there offer this as an application type. Students can only apply to one school early decision. It's also binding, is what they're saying. Students are saying by applying to a school ED is that they're telling the school, you are my number one choice. And if you admit me, I'm coming. The rule is if you get admitted to an ED school, then you are supposed to cancel all of your other applications. The caveat to that is you don't know the financial impact on you and the family until much later. So you should only apply early decision if the financial piece is not going to have a negative impact. Excuse me. Many schools like Miami of Ohio, they will confirm a certain number of seats each year, ED, so they can have those seats filled by January 1st. Early action is much more popular. Students can apply to as many schools as they want. Early action, it's an earlier deadline. Sometimes it's tied to their scholarship deadline, like at OSU, which is November 1st. If you apply early action, non-binding to the student, it's also non-binding to the school. Restricted early action is also an application type that very few schools have. It's more of the elite schools all over the country, like the Ivy Leagues in Stanford and places like that. This is just an opportunity for a student to tell that school that you are my number one choice, it is still non-binding. Regular application deadlines are much later. A place like Ohio State has a February 1st regular application deadline that students can apply after the early action deadline. They can still apply, they can still get in, but they cannot earn any merit scholarships by applying regular deadline. So many schools will have an early application deadline and a regular application deadline, which is much later. Super scoring. So my advice when students are taking the ACT and SAT is to take each test once, choose which test fits them best, then take that test 2 more times. The reason is some schools actually super score the ACT and or they super score the SAT. Super scoring is when they take the highest subscores across multiple tests to create a new composite score. So if students take the ACT multiple times, let's say they score a 26, a 27, and a 28. A school like Ohio State that does not super score, they will take the highest score and use the 28. A school that super scores, like Miami of Ohio, they would, or even Case Western, Johns Hopkins, and schools like that, they will take your highest English from one test, highest reading from a different test, highest math, and highest science. They might say a student has a 28, 29, or even a 30 based on those subscores. So as students go on visit, you want to be able to ask, are you a test optional school? Also, do you super score? These are questions that you would like to ask. And if they do super score, then it's important that students send all of their test scores to that school. The Common App is the most common application. You're going to hear this term a lot. Over 1,000 colleges out there use this. Over half of the colleges in Ohio use this one application. I will have Common App camps in August to help seniors get set up and start this application. The Common App does not go live until August 1st of a student's senior year. And we're going to talk about holistic review. Holistic review is how students are evaluated. It's not just based on your GPA and the standardized test score. They're going to look at the entire application as well as the essays to come up with a decision for your child. So going back to the applications, there's 4 different types of applications. One is the Common App with over 1,000 colleges using that. Most of your students are going to use this application. Many schools might use the Common App and have their own application as well. Or if they apply to a school like Ohio Dominican, they only have their own application, which is just fine. If a school offers both, they don't want students to fill out both applications. They want one application per student. There is an application type out there called the universal application. I've never seen this application because only 50 schools use it. And all 50 of the schools use Common App as well. And so that is what our students use. And then there's the Coalition app that is gaining some momentum. Now it's up to about 200 schools all across the country are using this one application. Ohio State used it for 2 years and has recently dropped it because there's been some issues with it. All of the schools that use the Coalition app also use the Common App. So whenever in doubt, students are probably going to be using the Common application. College visits. It is important that during this junior year that our students are going to campus and visiting with those folks on campus. It's important that they schedule the visits through the admissions office. If they just go and visit friends on campus and those friends give them a tour, the college did not know that they've been there. So it's important, and we're going to talk about demonstrated interest soon, that so colleges can track when they've had contacts with students, that they schedule visits on campus. Schools are also offering online visits now as well. They're called virtual tours, virtual visits, where you can schedule them and students Zoom with somebody on campus. At the same time, we have over 100 representatives from various colleges coming to the Hilliard schools to see students during the school day. Students can sign up for these. They'll be called out of class, and they can meet with these college reps here at the high school. The way they sign up for them is they go into School Links. Right on that front page, you can look at school events. They click on that. They get a list of all of the colleges coming from that day that they're on there at that point till the end of the semester. And so I advise students to take advantage of that. Financial aid. I have a typo here. All of our junior parents will be filling out the free application for federal student aid. You'll be filling out the 24-25 FAFSA. You will be using your 2022 tax information when you do that. There's major changes coming to financial aid. We will offer a financial aid meeting in late September of your child's senior year. The free application for federal student aid goes live on October 1st during your child's senior year. So we will have a meeting prior to that, so everybody is informed and they know exactly what they have to do starting on the 1st of October. So financial aid terms, please, when you get to this point, you will be going to studentaid.gov. Yes, I did leave out a T there, but studentaid.gov, that is the website. Do not go to a .com or any other website to fill it out. What's important too, that sometimes our parents miss, is when our kids that apply to some of the private schools, the schools in the South or along the East Coast, they use two documents to create a financial aid package. They'll use the FAFSA, and they'll also use the CSS profile. The CSS profile is another document that can be found on the College Board website, which colleges use to create. Most of the state schools, the public schools, do not use a CSS profile. They only use the FAFSA. On every school's website, within 2 clicks of the homepage, this is federal law, every university must have a net price calculator. This tool is used to give families a better idea of what the true cost is actually going to be at that school. So that's something parents and students can fill out. It doesn't take very long. It'll give you an estimate of what that cost might be. I think it's important when students go on visits that they have questions they want to ask. Are you test optional? Do you super score? I think it's important you ask, what is your retention rate? I think it's important to know students that go to Ohio State, 95% of them come back as a sophomore. And if you ask this question and they tell you that 50% of our kids come back as sophomores, we may want to follow up with why. Why are half the kids not staying here after their first year? You want to ask, do you have study abroad opportunities? Do you have co-op opportunities, internship opportunities? Do you offer work study, federal work study? Do you have opportunities for kids who don't qualify for federal work study to also get jobs on a college campus? What is your middle 50% ACT and SAT scores? Who teaches your classes? We as parents don't invest this kind of money to have our students taught by 22-year-olds who are GAs. We want our students to be taught by by those faculty members. Do you offer scholarships? If so, do you have a scholarship deadline? When is it? Do you have separate scholarships that have their own applications? And if so, where can I find them? Social media. I know parents, you've been talking to your children about this for years and years and years. It's important that they will tie all of their applications to an email. So if the email was created when they were in 4th grade, it probably sounds like it. It's time to probably create a new one. At the same time, college reps may friend students on Facebook or Instagram so they can send them all kinds of information, quick, easy, and cheap about the school. But if they can do that, then they can also see what is being posted on there as well. And if you don't think social media posts are part of the whole holistic review, then you are kidding yourself. And so it's important that students understand that as well. So what are colleges looking for? They're going to review your child holistically. And these are things that your child can also control. They can control the courses that they're going to take compared to the courses that we offer. When we send a student's transcript, we also send a school profile that will outline how many AP courses, how many honors courses we offer, what our student body looks like, and things like that. So colleges, when they're reading a transcript, they also have an idea of how demanding the course schedules have been. They're going to look at their standardized test scores. They're going to look at their GPA. Now, many colleges may create a new GPA for students by unweighting them. Okay. Our students in the activities section of the application, are they able to put in where they have volunteered? Have they been a part of different clubs and school activities? Are they a part of clubs and activities outside of school? Have they taken on any kind of leadership roles? The essay is becoming more and more important because that gives an opportunity for the reader to create a new vision for the student that's different than what the application and the transcript is saying. There's a COVID question that's going to be a part of the application where students can write about a special circumstance that might have happened during lockdown or during the pandemic. I've advised our students to maybe write about what they learned about themselves during the pandemic and also demonstrated interest. A lot of colleges will create a scale on how they feel students are interested in their school. They can come up with that number based on the number of times students have gone to campus, number of times that they've seen the students at college fairs. Have they seen them at the high school? Have they contacted them via email? Colleges track all of that. Your students are getting emails from colleges all the time, and they use programs that help them with this because they can see, have students opened those emails? Can they see, did students click on the link inside of the emails? How long did they stay inside the link? And so they use that data to create a scale on how interested they feel the student is in them. Not all schools, like Ohio State, does not use that, but a lot of private schools and a lot of maybe out-of-state schools want to create a number, I guess, 1 out of 10 on how interested is your child in their school. So again, what can a student control in this college admissions process? They can control the classes they take. They can control the grades they earn. They can control the amount of service and leadership that they have at school and in school, or outside of school. And they can control being a part of these clubs in school and out of school. They can also control demonstrated interest at these colleges as well. There is a part of the admissions process that students can't control. Sometimes people get upset with these because they feel like they might not be fair, but there are things called institutional needs. So all of the colleges all over the country have their own needs. A place like Ohio State, one of theirs is they're going to admit students from every county in the state of Ohio. They're going to admit kids from all 50 states. They're going to admit kids from at least 35 countries. And so you might like that or dislike that, but I'm just telling you that's part of it. Some colleges, if there's a relationship with somebody from a parent who had been a student at that school, there's many schools that hold that in a positive regard and give students an advantage sometimes. They're going to, many of the private schools, they're not going to give any kind of admissions decision until they also receive the financial aid forms, because socioeconomics, sometimes having the ability to pay is a part of the admissions process, especially on the private school side. And special talents. Does the school need a trumpet player? Do they need an athlete? All right, these are all special talents, special needs that schools sometimes use in the admissions process. Not saying they're fair, not saying that they're not fair, but it's important that we understand the big picture of this, that there are institutional needs that we won't know about that does have an impact on the admissions process. So I mentioned earlier that we will have a meeting in mid-April. So I want to talk about what students should be doing between now and mid-April. Students should be signing up to meet with college reps at the high school. They should be going online, doing virtual tours, virtual visits. They should be attending college fairs. They should be meeting with college reps on campus face-to-face. They should begin to create a testing plan, and then to start thinking about areas in which they might want to study. This should be done now, early October through the middle of April. When we meet in April, we will talk about what they should be doing from April till August 1st, which is when the Common App goes live. So what I've been able to do over the last week or two, I've done some admissions activities with some students, some juniors and some seniors. My wife and I sat down one day, we created a new college, Hilliard University. And we also created 10 fictitious students as well. And the activity is students have to get into groups of 4 or 5. Then they have to read the profile of this college, understand the institutional needs for that school year, and then read the small profiles that we've made of each of these 10 students. And then they have to come up with the 2 students that they're going to admit, the 2 students that are going to get waitlisted, and the 6 students that are not going to get in. They're pretending like they're 3rd or 4th level college admissions teams, and they sit in a review session. So Hilliard University happens to be a school that's similar to Emory, Northwestern, the University of Notre Dame, where we admit 15 to 18% of our students. So what this is doing, it's allowing students to maybe identify some blind spots in their own college process. It's also helping them understand big picture and how the people sitting on the other side of the table have to look at everyone and bring in students from all over the country, from different backgrounds. They can't just be suburban kids or private school kids. And so it's helping our students understand how that process works at a highly selective college. If you want to contact me, feel free to send me an email. Follow me on Twitter. I encourage you to do that. I send out things every day about upcoming meetings, ACT, SAT, scholarships, as well as new programming that's going on throughout the state and at various colleges. So I've really enjoyed this time, and I would love to meet with you. Feel free to email me and we can schedule a time. Thank you. Bye-bye.